While the opposition in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro have successfully removed the DA Mayor Athol Trollip through a vote of no confidence. His bitter rival, the UDM's Ongama Mtimka, is the new mayor, and the new speaker, ANC Councillor Bulelo Mafaya, has been elected.
Well, the election of a new speaker was made possible after the MEC for local government, that's Fikile Xhasa, designated Jenny Roosdorff to preside over the election of a new speaker. Mafaya was elected with 61 voters in the 120-seat council. Now, the DA coalition is not in chambers after they left during the afternoon. Earlier today, DA Speaker Jonathan Lewak was removed from the position after one DA councillor abstained from voting.
Now, joining us from our Pretoria studio is political analyst Dr. Sithembile Mbete, and from our Port Elizabeth we have via Skype a political analyst from the Nelson Mandela University, Ongama Mtimka. Let me welcome you both. Let me start with you. It was quite a, well, I wouldn't say fun-filled day, but a hectic day for the DA, losing out on this metro. And the reason being their own member.
Yes, I mean, I think that was the big surprise of the day, was that there was the one DA councillor who decided to vote with the opposition and was quite vocal about it, being interviewed by a number of journalists. And that it initially seemed as though the DA was going to then succeed in removing that councillor from his position through what's come to be called the Delil clause, that basically says that any member of the party or office bearer of the party who makes it clear that they want to leave the party will immediately lose their position. But that doesn't seem to have stuck. We know that there was some exchange of legal documentation, and so when the debate, but the DA eventually did leave the chamber, but it seems as though the vote took place anyway, later on in the afternoon or early evening, and by all accounts there was a quorum, so the meeting had about 61 people inside it, and they voted the new mayor into place.
Well, Ongama, I guess although some role players or stakeholders or analysts may want to argue legalities here, whether the councillor had, the DA had the right to remove him as a councillor or not. But a political decision has been taken here. The DA has lost the metro.
Well, the question about rights is not really an issue, in the sense that any party has a right to hire and fire, especially PR councillors who go into council on the basis of a closed party list, where they don't contest on an open basis and their names are on the ballot, like it happens with ward councillors. So the issue, though, was the legal acceptability and the procedural fairness of firing a councillor during a council meeting in which, when he had started it as a due representative of the Democratic Alliance. So where the legal grey areas may still be there, in fact, are around the questions of in those documents, for example, Sithembile was talking about, that whether ultimately a court of law may decide that those the DA, it was within its rights to fire that councillor immediately, which is very doubtful. It's a grey area as far as one is concerned. And also, following that, the municipal manager at some stage said the council meeting did not correlate. And as such, because he had declared a vacancy, but he left, and then he left the council. Once he had left the council, apparently he sent an SMS whose screen munch was on social media, that he had retracted the declaration of the vacancy, which then means that, as Sithembile was saying, that council meeting which went on to vote for to oust Athol Trollip, the speaker, as well as the chief whip, can be said to have been duly constituted, in the sense that there were 61 councillors in, and the MEC had sent a deployee. And by the way, the Structures Act does say that who should preside over a speaker nomination election process should either be the municipal manager or as a representative sent by the MEC for cooperative governance when the municipal manager is not available. There may be questions around whether not available is not a provision only for when there is no municipal manager at all in a city, or it means when they are not available at a certain stage to preside over a council meeting. But as you said, there's been a political change. I was saying recently that who makes the claim to the mayoral position tomorrow might just need a legal interdict in order to get the mayoral chain and get the keys to the mayoral office.
Is this a victory for the EFF?
It seems to be for now. It seems to be.
Well, Ongama, let me hear what has to say on this one.
Well, it certainly does seem to be, and I think that the EFF will want to claim this as a victory, certainly. We know that Julius Malema last year already had said that, Athol Trollip wouldn't see out his term of office, and he seems to have been proven right. I think that what this points to, though, apart from legal issues or the victories of individual political parties, I think what it points to is the difficulty of successfully running a coalition. And I think it's a big lesson to not only the Democratic Alliance, but also all other major parties in South Africa that are likely to enter some kind of coalition governance in different parts of the country from 2019. And what we saw here, and as Ongama says, the different arguments around the legalities of this will probably still play out. But what we saw was certainly on the part of the DA a political failure, a failure to bring along its coalition partners, to negotiate, to reach decisions by consensus. And that is actually what has gotten us here. We know that Mongameli Bobane was removed as deputy mayor by Athol Trollip, and with a whole lot of complaints by the UDM itself, and that's what placed a whole lot of the tension within the coalition government itself. And I think that what this tells us, and the lesson one hopes that the Democratic Alliance and other political parties are going to take from this, is that coalition parties are very delicate, coalition governments are very delicate relationships that require nurture, negotiation, and consensus building in order to work. You can't just expect to bulldoze and to have your decisions win the day. And I think that in as far as the EFF was trying to teach the DA a lesson in this case, that you can't take us for granted, you can't take other smaller parties for granted, I think this is most certainly a victory for them.
Now, Ongama, I had a look at the list of MMCs, and really without really being judgmental or anything, everybody is proven, they are presumed innocent until they are proven guilty. There's Andile Lungisa there as an MMC. You think the ANC got it right there?
Is he a politician with a character that can whip a particular administration to perform, to achieve a particular political mandate? Yes. Is it the best among the ANC's cadres? I would say absolutely not, especially given the fact that he still has a pending case that he is busy appealing.
Well, before I let you go, I'm not going to do so without taking advantage of your presence here. Let's talk about the State Capture Commission, Ongama, very briefly. I wasn't impressed with Faki Mentor, really, to tell the truth. What was your take?
Yeah, so my limited engagement with that process, busy as I was with what was happening in Nelson Mandela Bay, it seemed to be all over the place. It seemed to be dragging and pulling in detail whose purpose didn't serve to strengthen the case that much, more than it raised some questions about her testimony. So I think she could have just focused, as the judge had to actually call on her, on what she knows and stick to that. All the other details seemed to be a little bit too much and unnecessary. I suppose what she learned from the testimony of Jonas was that it did play a role to bring in a little bit of the anecdotal, because, you know, about this inquiry, one of the things that we're looking at in the inquiry is are some of the emotion, as well as the other things which actually help reveal the depth of the kind of issues that these people had to face dealing with the Guptas.
Stay, I mean, we were hearing about curry. I don't like the curry. I don't like chai tea. The tiles were purple or they were not. You know, all those things. I thought, really? Is this the fakey who's always on a hero on Facebook?
Well, I do think that we must remember that this Commission of Inquiry, yes, is a legal process and a very important legal process, but the usual kinds of coaching that witnesses go through for a courtroom, so where a witness would go up and testify, but then would have either side's legal team, preparing them beforehand for the kinds of questions they could expect, and perhaps even for tips about how to answer to seem like a credible witness and all the rest of it, that's likely not to have happened here, because really Ms. Mento was coming to share her experiences with the court and with Justice Zondo about the allegations that she's made against the Guptas and against former President Jacob Zuma. So one would expect that her testimony would have been sort of tighter and a lot less anecdotal had she been in a formal court of law. However, that being said, I do think that on different points of detail of where it actually affects the issues that are being looked at in the terms of reference of the State Capture Commission, one of which is whether or not the Guptas were able to influence appointment decisions of President Zuma, which according to law are meant to only be his business. So nobody else is supposed to be involved in those decisions. And whether or not Ms. Mento was able to communicate that kind of undue influence really remains to be seen. I think that, there was a lot of what she said that got lost in the fluff, and part of the job of the commission is really going to be to try and tease out some of the facts, to try and tease out some of the relationships and the patterns, so that they can then determine whether or not President Zuma was unduly influenced by external people in his decision making.
Well, from our Pretoria studio, that was Political Analyst Sithembile Mbete, and from PE via Skype, Political Analyst from the Nelson Mandela University, Ongama Mtimka. We're taking a quick break. We shall return. Please don't go away.